foot, foot. This is a bit thick. My foot, my toes. Yeah, we'll try something like that.
This year for Halloween, I'll be dressing up as Nightcrawler. First, we have to look at the components of the costume that we need, starting with a black suit, a red V, white gloves with red trim, the tail, and our toes and hands. I'll give you a bit of a spoiler. I didn't end up doing the hands because I didn't want to have to awkwardly pick things up with my giant fingers. I decided to start with the, in my opinion, what I thought was going to be the hardest part of the costume.
Feet. So kind of make like a shoe out of it. He's got like 2 front toes and a back toe, kind of like that or something. And then he also has a tail, which I possibly plan to use this for a tail.
I can't say exactly what type of foam this is because it's just some foam that I had lying around the house. But I ended up drawing a rough outline of my own foot and then drawing around that and then cutting out a rough shape.
I think it looks like a mutant toe.
I then took it to a grinder.
Dear Lord, I'm gonna get tetanus. This is a grinder. And basically what it does, when you turn it on, it spins, and it's kind of like, it's almost like an electric sander. It kind of like smoothens things down. I'm gonna try and smooth it out so it's rounded at the top like a toe is, and then smooth it on the sides so that it's not as rigid.
To get my actual foot imprint in it, made sure that my foot trace was still visible, and even made another trace mark line for where my foot curves out. And then after slightly cutting into where I traced, I literally just pulled the foam out and tried to make it as even as possible. While in video concept form, this seems pretty simple. This part actually took me quite a long time to do, much longer than the sewing part, which we'll be getting to soon. The next thing I used the foam for was the tail. I did not film that process, but oh hey look, the tail's blue now, and I pinned it on to the black suit with a pin. Speaking of the black suit, I did not sew the black suit. I bought a black bodysuit on Amazon. I also bought a white bodysuit on Amazon because I can take that white bodysuit, cut off the arms and legs, and then hem it together to make the gloves. Now that the white gloves are finished, it's on to the red trim. The red fabric that I bought already had a finished edge on it. So luckily all I had to do was measure out a long rectangle shape. I then sewed each end of the rectangle together to get a circular shape that I could slip my hand through. And now of course it's time to put the red trim onto the glove. For this I tucked it inside and then sewed it right on. As you can see, I left some of the trim out. That way I can just fold it right over top of where I sewed to have a clean finish. I will get to how I attach the foam feet later, but for now let's move on to the red V. This was arguably the most difficult part of the entire sewing process. First thing we did was I traced a pattern out of old cloth that we weren't really using, to make sure that it fit right and it looked right. In the original costume, the V goes all the way around him, but for this I made it more like a tunic, and I think it works really well in the end. After we cut out the V shape, I hemmed the outside. Now, if you don't know what hemming is, it's basically the process of folding the end of the fabric inward and then sewing it to itself. So the next step of the V after hemming the outside is of course sewing the inside of the V. After cutting out the shape of the V, we actually cut out the exact same shape of the V into a different piece of fabric. To be honest with you, I'm a little unsure of how this part was done, because I actually didn't do this part. Luckily, I have a very nice grandma that helped me put this whole entire costume together and helped me learn sewing techniques. After she cut out the second part of the V shape, she then somehow folded it and sewed that together and then cut it off with the shears? I don't know exactly how it works, but it made a really nice finished look, and I really appreciate that she did that for me. Thank you. As you can see, the red V is finished, but the shoulders are sagging. So, of course, I grab my trusty old red Solo cup and cut it into a triangle shape. I make sure to place duct tape where I cut the cup so that it doesn't tug or tear at the fabric. I then use a hot glue gun to hot glue it directly to the fabric. I did test this on my fabric to make sure that I could do it, and so that it doesn't damage the fabric. After I glued them on, I added a Velcro to both the shoulder pads and the black suit itself. As you can see, the costume is almost finished. Let's pin the tail on that costume with a bobby pin and get back to right where we started.
For my foot.
For the first foot, I tried just cutting and sewn and stitched together the white fabric over top of the feet, hemming together around the foam foot itself, which it kind of worked, and I was pressed for time, so it works. It looks pretty good, in my opinion, actually. For the second foot, I tried this new technique, where I didn't really even have to sew at all. It was this strip of, like, glue stitching stuff that I just folded the fabric and ironed on. And I think it actually gives it a really nice finish. Now that I have the white fabric sewn around the feet, I can then cut a slit for my actual feet to slip into. After we cut the slit, we sewed around it just to make sure that it didn't all fall apart. Nightcrawler has pointy blue ears, so of course I also had to go onto Amazon and buy some pointy blue ears. Alright, let's see if we have all the components for our Nightcrawler costume. Luckily, I have a very nice grandma that helped me put this whole entire costume together. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, subscribe, do all the diddly dang comments on how good, bad you think my costume is. Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe.